Hello there. Welcome to this Balance Online posture breakdown class. My name is Tim, and for the next 15 minutes, I will be teaching this little mini class for you. So we're going to be focusing on Peacock pose, so called Mayurasana. Now you might know feather peacock, pincha Mayurasana, which is the forearm stand, but there's also a one where you go have your body horizontal, balancing on your hands. And you kind of have your elbows in your gut. So it's not the most comfortable poses. I will warn you about that already. Now today we're going to be focusing on, I'll show you two different variations actually. So there is the traditional one, and there is a little one that I kind of adapted myself. It's more of a calisthenics version, but I actually prefer this variation toward instead of the traditional one. So the traditional one is very heavy on your wrists, and you really need to get those elbows really in your gut. And let's be honest here, this pose was designed by a man, I think. So it doesn't really take into account that women have breasts and that it's really not comfortable to have those arms and those elbows in this position. So that's why we also do a little bit more of a variation, okay? So if you are joining me straight from my previous class, Proud Like a Peacock, you already be nice and warmed up. If not, we're just going to do a little bit more of a wrist warm-up because most of the strain here comes onto the wrists, and we'll go from there. So, classic wrist warm-up, one that I use in almost every class and always in every practice of my own, is you start in a tabletop. Now, these wrist warm-ups don't have to be super intense or exciting. We're going to lean forward until we feel a bit of resistance in our wrists. Now from there, push into your fingertips until you see the fingers change color, and then you're going to push yourself back. So we're not using body weight to go back, we're really using that push in the fingers. Now you might realize it or not, but in arm balancing, your fingertips, you control a whole lot of the balance. Then keep going forward till you find that resistance. Push into those fingers, push yourself back. One more, come forward. Push into the fingers, come back. Now come forward till you feel that resistance, and then we rotate. About 3 or 4 times, clockwise. Every time you come forward, you're going to find that resistance, that edge, and you gently massage along it. From there, we switch directions. One more rotation, and then come back to the center. All right, now here, rotate those hands 180 degrees until the fingers point towards your knees. Again, grip the mat with your fingertips, and now see if you can lean back until you feel some resistance in those wrists of yours. You're going to feel that stretch in your forearms as you do this. Grip the mat. You want to see those fingertips change color as you're squeezing the blood out of them. Now come forward a little bit. Now place the hands together. And then bend your elbows a little bit. Leaning back. All right, come forward. Come to sit on your heels. Gently shake out the hands. Good. They might feel a little bit sore from those stretches. Let it subside a little bit. All right, so peacock pose. So as I said, you're going to have your body horizontal, balancing on one point in the middle. Now it's a balance, right? So you want to have as much weight forward as back, kind of like a seesaw, whip up. All right, so depending on where you have more weight, you're going to have to lean forward or back to adjust. So if you're more heavy in the shoulders, you're going to have an easier time bringing weight forward, making it easier to have the legs lift up. If you're a little bit heavier in the legs, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to find that balance in the middle. It's going to be different for everybody. So to make it a little bit easier, we want to shorten the length a little bit. So the longer the distance from the center point of balance, the harder it's going to be to balance. So we make it a little bit shorter. And we do that by, if you're comfortable in lotus pose, maybe go for a full lotus pose. I'm not, this wrecks my knees, so I always just do it from a cross-legged position. From there, starting with the traditional one, we're going to come onto the knees. All right? Now we have the legs crossed like so. From there, we turn the hands around 180 degrees, and we bring the hands together. All right? Now from there, we want to, if you are a woman and you do have breasts, you're going to kind of see if you can scoop your elbows and your arms underneath. This makes it a little bit more comfortable. From there, we want to lean forward. We want to bring those elbows into our stomach. Now, I made a mistake of having too much of a big breakfast, so it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable. And then from there, we lean forward until we can lift up the legs. As you see, I'm really not a fan of this traditional version. It can be very intense to try. And I'm starting to slip a little bit on my tank top as well. So, come forward until you can lift up. So, maybe those legs lift up. Maybe like me, you're struggling a little bit. As I said in my class before, I do have a little bit of wrist injury, so I don't want to push it too far. Now, if you are able to come into this version, you're able to have those legs lift. Maybe you can see if you can try to lengthen the legs as well. And then find that balance here. And you control the balance by really gripping those fingers into the mat. All right, so little recap. Crossing the legs on the knees. Turn your hands around. Scoop the elbows underneath. Bring them in towards your belly. Bring weight forward. Elbows into the gut. And then see if you can get those legs to lift up. All right, give it a shot. All right. Now, I'm not sure if you're quite there yet, but I'll move on to the other version. So, as I already noticed now with me, this is very heavy on the wrist. Now, I was already dealing with the wrist injuries, so it might not have been the smartest thing to do this version for me. So, but you might understand why I don't prefer this variation. As well, those elbows are really digging into your gut, and it's really not comfortable. You really got keep your abs engaged as you hold it. So I have a little different variation for you. This one is going to be a little bit less of the elbows in the gut, but more on the side. And because we have our wrists turned in a different way, it's a little bit less intense on the wrists. And if you are a woman, you're going to have a little bit more space here for your breasts. So this variation, we are going to have the hands point outward. So 90-degree angle. Now from there, we want to have those elbows come into the side of the body. Start first small as well. And then you're going to lean forward until you can get those legs to lift up. We balance here. It's kind of like a break dance move as well. Even break dancers, they will even start to like do 360s there. So come down, see how that went. A little bit easier, right? I'm betting it was a little bit easier. Now, as I said, you start small, make it a little bit easier to control the balance. Once you are a little bit more comfortable with that, you see if you can start to extend the legs. So, come down, hands almost to the edges of your mat, fingers out towards the left and the right. Lean forward, bring those elbows into the side. Bring your nose to just above the mat. Lift up those legs, and then see if you can straighten them. Now, maybe you smash your face in the mat as well, like what just happened with me. Maybe you only have a little moment of balance, but see how that goes. Again, grip the mat with the fingers. Try maybe one more time. Start small, and then maybe extend. Good. So, not the easiest of poses, as I warned, but it can be a little fun one to practice as well. It's a good challenge for the body. So I always say, enjoy the challenge. Don't focus on the result. As you see with me, this can differ day by day. So you might be having days where you're already sore, where you're already a little bit injured, and you need to take a little step back. Doesn't mean you don't practice it, but you take it a little bit easier. And you just try to enjoy learning these postures. As I said, Mayurasana is not an easy pose. So, when you are doing poses like this, always take care of the wrists. So, as I told you, I have a wrist injury. This came from me not listening to my own advice, not taking good enough care of my wrist, and doing a lot of stuff on my hands. So, learn from my mistakes. We're going to end again with those wrist exercises. You can use these before and after. Actually, I would recommend to do it before and after any practice, whether you're arm balancing or not. Because, as you might know, in yoga, you do a lot of stuff on your hands. Every chaturanga, every down dog brings pressure on those wrists. So we lean forward, push into the fingers, push yourself back. Lean forward. Push yourself back. Now lean forward and then rotate. All right, switch directions, other way. Come back to the center. Rotate those hands 180 degrees till fingers point towards the knees. And then see if you can lean back. Couple soft breaths. All right, again now, come back forward, rotate those hands. Come to sit on your heels, give them a gentle shake. All right, take good care of those wrists. Now, if you want to practice it a little bit more, feel free to do so. If you have the time, try it a couple of times, but never force, especially with a pose like this, never force anything past pain, because you might regret it later. And if not, just maybe review this video later on so you can see the steps to take for these two variations. Now, we take a moment, seated, to close our eyes, to kind of review that information in our heads. Allow our body to kind of start to analyze what we did. And most importantly, we say thank you to that body. Thank it for all its strength, for its hard work. Thank yourself for your effort. Take good care of that body. It's the only one you're going to get. And be nice to it. I want to thank you for joining me today for this posture breakdown. And I wish you a wonderful, wonderful day. Namaste.